Hello and welcome to episode 8, I think it is now, of Ask a DM, a D&D Q&A show where I bring on a guest DM and we answer your questions. And with me this week, I have the puzzle master himself, Wally DM. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Wally?
Sure. First, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Happy Sunday to everybody. And I am Wally DM. I have a YouTube channel that focuses on puzzles and traps for D&D, Pathfinder, or any other tabletop role-playing game.
Cool. And if you want to ask us any questions, if you just put question before the question in the chat for us, just so you know you're talking to us. And if you're watching this after the live stream, put them down in the comments, and then I'll get them answered next week with whoever is on next week. We've got quite a few questions, so let's jump straight back into them, and then as people join the live chat, we can answer their questions as well. This first one is by Kaz, who is over on Twitter and asks, what do you think the most important stat is, or the most fun to play, use, and build on?
The most
It's
important,
quite a hard question.
That is. We're starting right out of the gate with the difficult ones. I'm gonna answer that in reverse, because the most fun to play, use, or build on, in my opinion, is charisma. And that's just because I love to play a charismatic character. I like to be able to skirt around battles and combat and solve things by, depending on where I focus at with my charisma, whether it's persuading or deceiving or intimidating. So charisma is the most fun for me. Now, I know that differs for a lot of people, but I absolutely love it. And I think the most important stat is intelligence, because DMs know that you are dumping that stat. And so they're going to throw in those intellect devours and those intelligence saving throws, and they're going to get you. Don't shy away from the intelligence. DM will get you.
Yeah, definitely. I have had a few players who have dumped wisdom, and that's been pretty detrimental as well, because there's so many spells which are wisdom saving throws or effects that are wisdom saving throws, and then they found out it's a bad way. I think one's the same as yours. Charisma is my most enjoyable stat. I usually play warlocks and sorcerers and people like that, so they're quite important for them as well. I also think dexterity is quite important in 5e because of its AC, and there's quite a few skills that it affects as well. So, dexterity can be quite an important one.
Yeah, dexterity and con usually always are putting a lot of points into those, because I mean, Constitution, you need the hit points, and dexterity usually, unless you're going with the heavy armor, I mean, it really helps with either initiative or armor class, and saving throws too.
Yeah, there's a lot of saving throws as well. I do think strength's underused quite a lot as well. There's not too much, unless you're obviously a fighter and you need it for your attacking. There's not too many skills or effects that do strength saving throws and stuff like that. So
that's true. Yeah, strength and intelligence are definitely I think the most often dumped stats, and that's why I said that's where it gets really interesting for a DM, because you can put stuff in there that will get into that intelligence, or you can put creatures in there that grapple, which, you know, making an opposed strength check will come in handy.
Definitely. I also use the rule where you can use strength for your intimidation, which quite a few people use as well, because it is a bit. Yeah, if you've got a barbarian that's not very charismatic, they should still be able to intimidate someone, really, if they do it in a strength sort of way.
Yeah.
So I use that as well to give strength a little bit more representation. We got Fred from How to D&D in the chat as well, saying hi Shrike, hi Wally.
Hey Fred.
Asking a question. Did you ever play the board game Hero Quest? And what did you like about the game if you did? Did you play it at all?
I have never played it, honestly.
No,
have you?
I'm afraid I haven't either. No. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've even ever heard of it. So I'm gonna quickly. I've seen the cover actually. Did they do a video game adaptation of it? I feel like I've seen the artwork before, but I've never actually played the game.
Yeah, I think. Is it a board game, or I think
yeah, it looks like it's a board game that's been re-released, or was re-released this year. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't played it, so I can't say much on that. Tell us what we're missing out on, Fred.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
the comments.
Yeah,
maybe.
in my defense on board games and stuff, there is I've only played one in real life D&D game in like the last 3 or 4
Mm,
years. So
yeah.
I don't really have anyone that, lives around me that is that much into fantasy role playing games that we would even play board games like that. Probably my only opportunity would be to either play it online with somebody or to go to my local game store. And I don't really go to those anymore because I'm making YouTube videos is my second hobby.
Yeah, yeah, and that is definitely time consuming. We all know that. Um, so, what system do you use to play online, or how do you play online? Do you use a virtual tabletop?
Um, Kind of. I'm a theater of the mind type of a person, but I will put maps in Roll20. But I don't like to put tokens with my maps. I like
Okay.
to just have the map there for reference, then so the players can see where they're going. But yeah, so if I'm using something like that, I'll use Roll20 to be able to display the map, and I'll use I always forget the name of it, where you could reveal areas of it as you go along.
Fog of
Uh,
War. Yeah.
yeah, Fog of War. I'll use that as well, and I'll also use it for the the background music. I'll use that for the background music. Oh, and D&D Beyond's got a nice little connection too. So if anyone the players want to connect D&D Beyond to Roll20, they can roll with their D&D Beyond account, which is pretty neat. So yeah, if I use one, it's Roll20, and it's just as an accessory, not really for tactical.
Yeah, cool. I think there's quite a lot of people that are going in towards the theatre of the mind way now. That it does make it very different if you use something like Foundry or Roll20. It changes it to a completely different game. It becomes a lot more tactical
Mhm.
and less role play because once they're on the board, they're playing a different game, aren't they?
Yeah, I've
Which some people
I,
like.
I've watched games where if the map's all the way open, then it's just like people are like racing their tokens around,
Mm,
like it,
yeah.
and it's like a horse race of tokens around the map and things. So that's primarily like why when I do use it, I don't even use the tokens. That way, they're not fidgeting with that and trying to move it around. Well, I move my guy here, I move him here, I move him here. So
Yeah. Cool. Okay, on to the next question. So, do you give your players a heads up on the kind of session that they expect this week? So, like how much roleplay, combat, intrigue, if, anything like that.
occasionally, I don't do it a lot of the time, but like if we have a combat heavy session, so if we have a session that leans more towards one or is like all combat or all role play, I will probably maybe give a little bit of a heads up, but I don't usually try to spoil too many things. Now, it's also going to depend on a cliffhanger too. I mean, if we, just meet this final person and they know a big role playing moment's going to come up, then they should be able to figure that out. Or if we have, encounter a dragon right before we end for the week, so the cliffhangers could potentially hint towards what the next session is going to be, but no, every once in a while I will, but not very often.
Yeah, that's what came to mind for me as well. If there's like a big boss battle coming the following week and it's been left on it,
Mhm.
then I'll make it clear. I quite like throwing like very deadly boss battles at people, and then but allowing them a week to plan. So
Okay.
so like in their group chat between sessions, be like go ahead, have discussions, plan how you're going to do this because it's going to be a very hard encounter. Um, so, and I'm okay with that. So that I think that's the only time I would say. I definitely don't do it every week.
Yeah.
Don't say the difference. Um, I feel like most of the players I play with like a good mixture as well. I don't really
Mhm.
have many players which just want combat or just want role play or whatever. So it's not much of a problem if there is a combat heavy week or a
Mhm.
role play heavy week. So I don't feel like necessary to give them the heads up and make sure they're okay with it.
That makes sense. Can you feel it? I can like feel it in my bones if there's like, man, we've been doing like a lot of role playing. I mean, I can feel like as a DM or GM that I need to start shifting one way or the other if I go too heavy. Is that kind of like an instinct that you have as well, or?
Yeah, I think that's something you get the more you play.
Mhm.
I know in the early days of DMing, I used to behind my DM screen have a timer, to help me with that, because one of the things I knew I struggled with earlier was pacing and sharing the spotlight. So I used to just, on my phone, I would just have a 10-minute timer. And then once it got to 0, I knew to change it up, because there were a few times where I gave one player the spotlight for too long and everyone else got
Makes
bored,
sense.
or I started combat was getting really boring and stuff like that. But then after a while, you do get used to it. And as you say, it's quite hard actually. I've done some videos where I've tried to give tips and stuff, but you do just feel it. You just sort of understand, okay, people are getting a little bit bored of this now, let's move to something else. And it's hard to give tips on that in YouTube videos and explain it, but it is just experience. I think at the end of the day, you get
Yeah,
used to it and know what your players want.
agreed.
Yeah. Cool. On to the next one. So, Pro DM Timothy over on Twitter asks, how do you hand out magic items to your party? Do you roll them randomly, or do you choose or design items specifically for them?
When I first started playing D&D, I loved the random tables, and it was just like, and I would just we would roll all day long, and that's how I got to learn a lot of the magic items. But recently, no, I like to handpick the magic items. I want them to be something that I know that the characters could use, and that's also a way that I like to give, you know, I don't want to say legendary magic items, but items that are specific to the characters. I mean, if you got pretty much an entire party that is spellcasters and a ranger, all these ranged attacks, and you throw a sword in there, nobody uses a sword. I mean, they could go sell it, but I think it's a lot more fun to just go through there, maybe create some homebrew magic items, but make them more specific for the characters. I mean, every once in a while, you can throw some, I guess, random in quotes stuff in there, like healing potions or spell scrolls or stuff like that, as part of just the loot that would be in there. But mainly, if there's magic items I want them to have, then I'm going to pick them.
Yeah, I think I would say I do a mixture. I think if they've just defeated like a dragon and it's in the horde, then I'll do it random. I'll
Mm,
use a random table. I quite like nowadays in my game, if they're going to get like a powerful weapon, that there's a sort of side quest to get the weapon. It's not just oh, you loot some rich person's house and they happen to have this on the wall. It's you've heard stories of this magical bow that does X, Y, and Z, but you have to go through this trial to get it, or something like that, or you have to go through a wizard's tower and it's at the
oh
top
yeah.
and stuff like that. So I don't really. So the only time I would do it randomly is if it made sense to be, i.e., it's a
Mhm,
horde. Most of the other time, I'm giving out something important that I will
mhm.
want just for that character. There's like a little side quest connected to it,
Nice.
to go and get it. I think that's sort of how I do it. I do give out like the I guess mundane items, or the items that could work for anyone, uh,
Yeah.
a little bit willy nilly. But yeah, that's how I would do the specific ones.
Now there is one tool that I've actually really started to like a lot more, and instead of rolling for random magic items, I actually have I forgot who made them, but I'm getting a good collection of card decks, and I've got like random treasures or whatever, and they're set out. I think there's 4 different decks, and they're by level, and so I'll have that deck by me, and in case they do something, the party does something I don't expect, or they get into a combat that I hadn't planned for, and they're like, hey, I'm going to search them, or I'm going to look in this chest or whatever else, and I'm not ready for that, then I'll just draw one of the cards, read through it, and then tell them the ones that I like off there.
Hmm. That's going back to when we were talking about the virtual tabletops as well. That's quite a hard thing to do if you plan
Mhm,
everything in the virtual tabletop,
mhm.
because I've come across that before where they've gone left when I've expected them to go right, and then it makes sense that they get some sort of loot from going left, but I didn't have it set up, and then you have to sort of pause for a minute while you get the weapon and put it in the loot and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, that could be a bit hard as well. Um, so we got a question in from the live chat from Sam Reed, who says, "Who is your favourite destined ally in Curse of Strahd? Have you ever run Curse of Strahd first,
I
or do
have
you know
never
anything
run
about it?"
Curse of Strahd. I've only run one of the 5e games, and I am currently in a Curse of Strahd game.
Oh, there you go.
Um, And I know right now the way that it's going, the Vistani are no longer my friends. I don't know if that means anything, but my character was again very charismatic, kind of arrogant. First encounter with Vistani, thought they were the best people ever, and then the last encounter didn't go so well. So yeah, that ended up happening. But my character really hasn't found anybody that he likes there. He kind of likes Strahd, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
have.
every dealing with Strahd so far, he hasn't been that bad of a dude. I mean,
Yeah, that's the part. So I've actually DM'd Curse of Strahd 3 times now, and that's part of the enjoyment for me is playing Strahd as just a nice guy. Like I have him come in as if he's trying to help the players. He's like, oh yeah, of course I help. And in the current one I'm running, there's a player that I genuinely think is going to just join Strahd. Is just going to bugger off the party and go and join Strahd in his endeavors because he's just like so in tune. He's like, yeah, this guy understands it. This guy's great. Let's go. Um, okay, because you're playing. I don't want to spoil anything now. I don't want to say anyone just in case
yeah,
it comes up to you.
yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, we're not too far into it. So
I'll talk in code. So there's there's two there's two that I like. The one that has a wild cat. I'll say that. And then that's hopefully the person knows. And then the other one is the one that has released a book. There you go. Hopefully Sam Reed understands the code I'm trying to get across there. If not, let me know in the chat and I might help you out a bit more. But yeah, Curse of Strahd. So I've ran Curse of Strahd, Rise of Tiamat, and Waterdeep Dragon Heist are the only three that I've ran. And honestly, Rise of Tiamat was pretty horrendous. That was my first experience running a written module, and I didn't enjoy it at all. And then Curse of Strahd and Dragon Heist are both good. But I generally do homebrew, so
yeah,
it's only on
me
occasion.
as well. But I have run Dragon Heist, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I definitely like that one. We got a question from Fred as well that says, "What do you think is missing from the character classes in D&D 5e from levels 11 to 20?" Sorry.
Oh wow, that's a good question, Fred. Do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I think I said this a few weeks back, but that and I think in fact, Fred, you let me know that this was a thing in 3.5. I think there should be a character class or subclass that is more a commander that doesn't really get involved with, like, even a bard to an extent should, it's sort of made as a support, but at that level, when it gets to level 11 and 20, you really need your bard to be doing heavy hitting spells rather than supporting, if that makes sense. So rather than from being like early levels, it could be doing a I can't think of spells now off the top of my head, but they could be doing inspiration and then a support like spell. And same with cleric. But then when it gets to 11 to 20, you want them to be doing like banishment. You want them to be doing counter spell or whatever else to help with the. Yeah, so I think there should be like a class which is 100% commander. That's what I think is missing at the moment. I don't know how you mechanically do that. Have someone who technically just stands on the sidelines and gives orders, but somehow mechanically is just as powerful as someone doing a fireball. But yeah, that's for the designers to work out, not me.
There you go. I'm going to still answer this, but I'm going to answer it in the wrong way, which I love doing, just because I've never really DM'd or played in a lot of the 11 to 20 levels. The highest one we have just reached level 10. So instead of going with what's missing from the character classes, I'm going to just mention something from the older editions that I really liked, which is actually covered in third-party material. And that is, what do your characters do when they get to the higher levels? And in the basic red box D&D, we had it had like the red box and the blue and then the green, then the black, and progress through the levels. And one of the things that I really liked in there was it had ideas for running your own barony or your kingdoms, or building a castle or a temple, or starting your own your thieves hideouts, or building a wizard tower and stuff. So and I'm pretty sure that Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers fills that niche there. But I would also like to see maybe official stuff at some point address things like that, how characters through those levels 11 20, and Fred will tell you a lot of the times too that after that level, I mean, combat is pretty much in your rearview mirror, and you've got all these other things to accomplish with your characters in the world. And I think stuff like that, being a ruler, being a noble, getting into the politics of the world, or just being a leader.
Yeah. Have you read either of Matt Colville's books that he's released around that?
I just bought Strongholds and Followers. I've had it on my shelf for about 3 weeks, and I haven't looked at it yet.
I think, I think they're pretty good if that's what you want from your game. So I'd definitely suggest having a look at them. But yeah, I agree. It would be nice to get the official rules for that and get them to sort it out a bit. Cool. Okay, so we got Hey Wally from Great Moustache, and a question that says, "What is your favorite consequences complication when a player fails a challenge or check, i.e., failed an athletic check, or more complicated, failed a puzzle?"
My favorite consequence. Boy, there's so many good ones. I like to fall back. First, also, Great Mustache. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. I like curses. I like, um, especially like with puzzles and traps. Maybe they think they're doing it right. They put something in motion and it starts working, and then all of a sudden, oh crap! It wasn't supposed to be that way. So I guess I like complicated consequences, but in the end, I'm always a proponent of, I like aging, I like curses, things like that for immediate effects. But then again, as far as other failed stuff, I like long term things. Maybe they activated a puzzle in the wrong way, and then everything seems fine, but when they go back to town, everything's all jacked up, or they opened a portal to the wrong world. Things like that.
Yeah, that's what came to mind when I first read this was the long-term consequences. I actually am probably one of the very few people that are evil enough to use Slud against players.
Nice.
I think it's the green Slud, if I remember rightly. But when it claws them, it infects them with tadpole, and then they've got 30 days to get the tadpoles out of their body. And it's pretty evil, but it changes. It's definitely a consequence, and it makes them think a bit more about combat in the future. Because I do think you can get to the point, and maybe if this is how you want D&D to be, it's fine, where they think they're invincible, or they think they're like heroic people that can do anything. Which is why quite early on I like to throw rust monsters at people to teach them, well, actually just hitting this with your sword is going to degrade your weapon and armor, so you've got to think of different ways. But yeah, mine are the consequences that last, and something else happens later. And I guess, yeah, curse is a really good way to do that, because then they have to go and get uncursed somehow. Yeah, that's what immediately came to mind.
Yeah, those are fun. I like that stuff when you think everything's done and over and it's all working correctly, and it's not.
Yeah, I think another caveat is consequences that affect people's backstories. That's also another good way. It happened in one of my Curse of Strahd games, actually. They annoyed Strahd,
nice.
and then as a consequence, Strahd managed to find one of their siblings and bring them to Barovia as well. And yeah, so that made a whole new dynamic, and that was quite fun as well.
Nice. Strahd's such a good guy.
He's such a nice guy. Sam understood my first code, but not my second code about Curse of Strahd. So he released a book recently, and he lives in the mountains.
You can go ahead and say it, because my memory's so bad I won't remember by the time we get there. I've watched the entire playthrough of Matt Chris Perkins
Okay.
running the Dice Camera Action series. I thought it was awesome. So I mean, you can say it.
Yeah. Well, I'll say he's also known as the Mad Mage. That's there you go. Then I don't technically say his name. How to D&D saying a lot of Matt Koval stuff is in older versions of D&D. Yeah, Matt Koval also brought me onto the idea of when monsters have 1 HP and there's loads of them. I forgot what they call it. It's in 4th edition.
Minions, maybe?
Minions, yeah, that's it. I use Minions now from Matt Koval because I didn't play 4th edition. So yeah, I think he does get inspiration from quite a lot of old stuff. Another question from Great Mustache. What's a moment you successfully threw a plot twist that surprised your players? Why do you think it was successful? Or how did it fail?
I like that.
Anything come to mind?
It does. I was trying to think of one that wasn't puzzle related, because now I'm going to go back to the puzzle related. When I ran a one shot, it was kind of, it was planned. Oh, yeah, this one will be fine. So the puzzle, the Hag's Doll, is it's a couple of years old on my channel now, but the adventurers, this is a one shot, and they're ran into this hag, and she wanted her doll back. There's a thief that they were chasing, so they needed to find this thief, and this thief took her doll. She's like, hey, bring this back to me. And this is a nice hag, I guess, quotes. But anyway, she's like, hey, bring this doll back to me, and maybe we can work out a deal, blah blah blah, etc. They go all the way through it. They find the thief that they're looking for, and they defeat the thief, and then they find the doll. And as they're walking out the doll, they find a room where it fits perfectly into a puzzle. There's 5 kid statues. 4 of them are holding dolls, and 1 of them isn't, and he's standing there with a sad face. And then when they come into the room, the statue animates, and it's like, it has its hands out like it wants the doll, and the doll animates and it wants to go to the kid. And so they let it go to the kid, which was the wrong way. That was the plot twist, was to actually solve the puzzle in the one shot, was they did need to bring that doll back to the hag.
Oh, okay.
When most people would say, don't ever trust a hag, but this time you should have.
Yeah. I guess that's always going to be a good one every now and again.
Yeah.
Maybe a few thousand. Cool. What was plot twist? So I had, and this was complete chance, and I doubt it's ever going to be replicated, but I had 2 players' backstories that interlinked so perfectly. So one of them had written basically that they played a harp when they were young, and then they had an event where something happened. I won't go into the details. And then another one just happened to do a backstory where they had amnesia, so they'd lost their memory. But then when they had gone there and they joined pirates, and they were ransacking a village, and they went into a room where there was a harp and a baby, and then had flashbacks, and then left the pirates thing and went to try and find what happened before they lost the memory. And basically, and both of these players decided the characters were the same, almost the same age. There was like a couple of years out, and it just worked so perfectly that I could write that they were actually brother and sister, but they never knew. So that was probably the biggest plot twist that worked for me. That's because cool. It just fit so well, and they independently made the backstory. And that was pretty crazy when that was revealed, because they were like, they didn't see it coming, because it's not something that normally happens in D&D, I guess, that you make the players brother and sister. So that was a big one.
I love that in campaigns, just connecting people either through relation or common stuff like that. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've done a lot of failures as well. I thought we're going to be amazing, and then people were like, "No, I saw that coming a mile off," or something like that. So there's been quite a few, but yeah, that was probably the biggest one.
That's really cool.
Had. So Fred also asking, what are some interesting exotic mounts that you think are suitable for a fighter class that won't break the game? I've used guard drakes, which I guess are exotic as mounts before. That's the first thing that came to mind with this question. What else?
Yeah, that's the first
Anything?
thing came to my mind as well. Is the I mean, we just got a class for it. Was the Drake Warden?
Yeah, the Drake Warden. Yeah.
That seems pretty good. Another one. So exotic mounts. So this one, Fred's bringing some good questions here. I'm loving it. Trying to trip Wally up is what he's trying to do. No. So one I just thought of is I'm actually creating a character to play in a one shot next weekend, and I'm going to make it a creation bard, and they get to create an at 6th level they get to animate an object that can be up to size large, and it has a 30-foot flying speed. And I was just like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll play that. And as I'm researching this, they're making all kinds of different stuff and using it as a flying mount. So like there could be like a stone statue, and for an hour you can fly around on this stone statue. Or if you've ever seen like one of the classic movies like Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, where they have the flying bed, you could use this animate object and you could fly around on this flying bed, for an hour or something. So yeah, as far as exotic mounts go, those are the two that well, the first one that popped in mind was gelatinous cube, and then I shook that one off because I don't know how you would ride a gelatinous cube. And not only that, but it only goes about 10 feet, the movement's slow, so it'd be kind of. But yeah, so I think 5e's just got it great with the Drake Warden and their creation bard.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't actually looked at the creation bard. I'll have to give that one a little read over. I did think while you was talking as well that constructs would be quite cool if you could make like a panther, but it was actually like clockwork.
Oh, that'd be
That
cool.
would be quite cool as well. And then the other one that I have used actually, but I only used this in a short campaign because I think it probably would break it, was a Displacer Beast. But I think that would actually be a bit too powerful. But I did have it for a session or two. It was a bit of fun. Yeah, it was a bit of fun, but I don't think it would actually be viable for a long-term campaign, really.
Cool.
Yeah, let us know if anyone else has any as well. Chuck them in the comments. Any exotic mounts that you've used? That'd be good to hear.
Give me some ideas to take.
Yeah. Sam Reed is asking, how do you make spellcaster villains? Have you run any spellcaster villains before?
I have, and honestly, how I make my spellcaster villains is I just make a character that I would like to play in a game. I'll just go through the entire character creation process. Now, trying to balance it is a little bit tricky. I've got to figure, like if everyone in the party is level 5, do I make my villain level 5? Do I go, level 8, level 10? And then, of course, I've got to have a few, I don't want my villain to be by himself. So it's going to have a few henchmen or whatever else that may be, maybe level 3 fighters or something like that. But yeah, as far as my spellcaster villains, I kind of, I just go through and build a character like I'm going to play. And then I just like, okay, this is my villain because I'm already enjoying the character to begin with.
Yeah, I definitely like that as an idea. That's a very good tip for new people as well. I'm probably quite sad because I have read all of the spells in the games multiple times. So pretty much now, if I saw the title of a spell, I can more or less know what it does. Might have to click in and read it, or get the book out and read it a little bit to work out the numbers. Because I think that's the biggest barrier to playing a spellcaster villain is how it's been done up until now in 5e, is that you're just given a huge spell list, and then you have to just know what all the spells do. So I find it a bit easier because I do know pretty much what all the spells do. But yeah, I like your tips there as well. And I do think that some of the newer books, it looks like they're trying to get away from the spell lists and just give them effects instead, which might help you if you do struggle with the spell lists.
Yeah, here's another idea that I like to do too. If you like introducing homebrew to your world, and especially for spellcasters, is Kobold Press has so many spells. They've got the Midgard Player's Handbook. Deep Magic, I think, is the other one. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of spells, and a great way to introduce these new spells to your game. If you're like, hey, this is, the Abjure Wizard would absolutely love this spell. I need to get it to him. Well, one of the ways you can get it to them is through a spell book, and that spell book could be carried by your spellcaster villain. So,
yeah, that's definitely good. I also think you're completely right about it being really hard to choose the level of a spellcaster villain. I have earlier on in my DM days done. I made the spellcaster far too high level, and they did Cone of Cold on the party and put 3 of them unconscious in the first round. And I was like, oh, that's not ideal. So I do think it's very hard to balance them. And from the other side as well, because if you don't use minions or the environmental effects well enough, spellcasters generally are squishy. So if you get like a monk that just stuns them, in one round, the whole party can pretty much kill them if they're not clever about it as well. So you can go both ways. In fact, I had a kobold spellcaster that was standing next to a lake, essentially, and the barbarian just ran at him and grabbed him and pulled him underwater, so he couldn't do any of his spells. So the whole encounter, he was supposed to be like the big, powerful spellcaster of the kobolds, and he couldn't do a single spell because he was being held underwater and couldn't get out of the grasp of the barbarian. So yeah, there is quite a lot of balancing problems with spellcasters.
What's great for us as DMs, though, is our villains, we have an infinite supply of them.
Yeah.
One goes down, there's going to be 1 to 3 more to take its place. So we're good.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Great Mustache has a question here as well. How do you create memorable NPCs, or are you always surprised by the NPCs your players latch on to? And what's the most surprising NPC that your players have loved?
That is a great question.
Anything come to mind?
A little bit. Usually I'm surprised. It's as far as NPCs go, because there'll be some that I'm like practicing the voice all week and, writing some little bit of backstory, stuff like that. But it's Kevin that they latch onto, and I hear that all the time as well. That's the one that they latch onto. The one that you had no plans to be like, okay, so you enter this tailor shop. There's so and so over there. Well, what's their name? What are they doing? And it's just like, oh man. So those are probably my favorite ones. Are the ones that are spur of the moment. They're improv, and you kind of create them as you go. And those actually seem like the ones that players latch onto the most.
Yeah, I have the exact same as well, where I spend lots of effort making an NPC that they're supposed to love or is supposed to be a big part, and they just don't care about them at all. And then there's one that came to mind. He was basically supposed to be like a mentor character for the party, and they just did not care about him at all. And in fact, they ended up deciding he was evil, even though he wasn't evil, just because they didn't like him. And then later on, they were going through the streets, and they asked if there was a town crier to find out some information about what's going on in this place. So I put in the town crier, and they ended up latching onto the town crier, and they ended up hiring the town crier to come with them and training them how to fight and stuff. And you never know what's going to happen with players. And that's part of the great thing about D&D, I guess. It's not like a video game where it's all set in stone. You get amazing moments like that. So
absolutely, that's one of the reasons why I chose Dragon Heist to run as my first 5e modules, because I wasn't very good at running NPCs or making them or whatnot, and Dragon Heist will force you to run a lot of NPCs. So I learned a lot from that one, and it was great practice. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the better modules for new DMs as well, because it does give you a lot of resources early on to help you along the way. Cool. If you are enjoying this, I would really appreciate it if you could give the video a like, just so it gets shown to more people, and then they can also get their questions answered. So Fred, I feel like this is a loaded question. Who are your favorite YouTubers that you have spoken with or collaborated with in the past?
Oh, that's for me. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, Fred, I'm gonna answer it. I see the smiley face underneath the comment too. Um, I love the YouTube collaborations. Fred, for those that don't know from How to D&D, has put together the Dungeon Master Roundtable, and it has been an absolute blessing. There's closing in on 100 videos, and it's usually a table of 4, and all different experience levels. And we're just getting together and talking about Dungeons and Dragons. We come up with questions and ask each other, and it's almost like a D&D game night for me. Just being able to hang out, because having and I tell them this all the time, is having a table full of YouTubers. We all understand what it's like with the grind and getting videos out and how long it takes videos and stuff. So to be able to hang out with a lot of folks that experience the same thing as we do is awesome. And Fred is actually one of the first channels that I watched that actually taught me how to play 5e, because I absolutely hated Pathfinder, and I was playing that at the time. And I played that for about 6 months, and then I was just like, I'm done with this. I'm playing. I switched to 5e, and Fred had so many helpful videos. It pretty much taught me how to play that. But yeah, to answer his question though, I absolutely love all the people that we've done collaborations with. They're a lot of fun. Fred's been awesome. Josiah from Dungeon Dad has been great. We're working on another collab right now, and I don't even want to keep naming them just because there's so many.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, because I'm relatively new, I guess, compared to you and
Mhm.
Fred, I've been going for 2 years. It's been a shock to me how happy everyone is to talk to you and get you involved. I sort of thought it was going to be like a dog eat dog kind of world on YouTube, where
Mhm.
everyone's trying to backstab people and no one wants to help each other. But it's been the opposite. Even people that are significantly bigger than me, I've sent them messages just either asking for advice or just saying like something like, "I love this video," and they've replied like really kindly. So one that comes to mind there was Jordan with the
Mhm.
PH is
Yeah.
silent. Jordan, he's I don't actually know how big of a channel he is now, but this was when I was maybe 200 subscribers, so even smaller than I am now. I
Mhm.
sent him a message which was just something I can't even remember what it was. It was asking for a bit of advice when it came to YouTube, and he actually answered. He took time out of his day to answer, and then I think that's what sort of then led me to reach out to different people
Mhm.
and do collabs. And so far, there have been very, very few people that have not wanted to. And if they haven't, there's been like a genuine reason. They've not got time or they've got something else going on. So it's not been
Yeah.
that they've just ignored me. So I think the whole community have been great. And who else in particular? Oh, so there's a J&J tabletop early on. I was having loads of tech problems, and they helped me out as well. So I will shout them out. But oh yeah, so Fred saying that Jordan is 100k plus
Yeah.
subscribers,
Just
and
hit
he still
100K.
took yeah, and he
Mhm.
still took time out of his day to answer me when I think I was 200, 300 subscribers at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of cool people in D&D YouTube space.
Absolutely. So I will shout out one of the videos that I made. It came out in April, and that is the top 10 iconic monsters. And I wanted to make the biggest YouTuber collaboration, and there are 24 different YouTubers in it. And when I started reaching out, a lot of the bigger channels, like you mentioned, weren't able to help. But Jordan, AJ Pickett, Nerd Immersion were the three biggest YouTubers at the time of the video, and all of them jumped right in. They all they had to do is send me a 30-second clip about a monster, and the fact that I got 24 different YouTubers, Bob World Builder and Dungeon Class and Dungeon Dad and Blanco and How to D&D, and I mean it just so many of them. And that's probably one of my favorite videos of all times, one of my favorite projects of all time. And like you said, even the ones like I reached out to, Nerdarchy and all the other bigger channels. Most of the times I just got hey, sorry, we're busy, we can't do this, but good luck, looking forward to your
Yeah,
success, kind of a thing. So, I, I'm, I guess I'm not really surprised, but I am very I'm very proud to be part of the YouTube community because it isn't a dog eat dog. It is very much we reach out and we help each other and stuff like that. And you know, we all want to see each other succeed, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. That was a really good question. Thank you for asking that, Fred. I think we generally don't get questions about being YouTubers, but they're usually questions about D&D as a whole. So yeah, it's cool to be able to let everyone know that it is fun being a D&D YouTuber. Mostly. I hate editing, but other than that, cool.
I like to edit.
Yeah. Editing. I just take too long on editing. I'm not very good at it, so it takes me ages. So, but yeah, that's another conversation. Cool. So we got another question from Great Mustache. What are creative solutions players have had that knocked your socks off or forced you to go with it because it was amazing?
Oh boy, there's gonna be so many. A minute
It's
to think
another
about
hard
this
one.
one. To come up with a good one here.
I think so. The first thing that came to mind for me was the. It's sort of similar to what you said at the end there, i.e., rubbing a piece of poison ivy oak inside a baddie's clothing. There was an encounter which was basically an orc encampment, and I 100% expected them to just go and attack this orc encampment or go and talk to them and try to deal with the situation. But they ended up watching them for almost a week to learn like the patterns of the patrols and stuff like that, and then ended up working out a way to poison their supplies. And I was just like, oh, this isn't normal D&D. Normal D&D, they just run in with swords and hit things. So that was one which definitely, knocked my socks off, as you said. So that's the first one that came to mind for me. Does
I
anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I've got a couple that come to mind, and both of them include a couple of patrons of mine. One of them was we were doing a one-shot adventure where they were getting chased by a shark. They were underwater, and I let what was he playing? He was playing a Aarakocra, and Forik from my Discord. I let him have a deck of many things as his magic item, and so he is just getting chased by the shark, and he decides just to start drawing cards and carrying with them because they're supposed to lock away. Strahd is in. If you've seen Dice Camera Action, you'll get the reference. But Strahd is in a puppet form. His soul is in this puppet, and they need to go and lock it away. And so they're pulling cards out as they're swimming away from the shark. They actually get out and get away, but one of the cards switched spots. So the Aarakocra went into the puppet, and the Strahd went into the Aarakocra. But I just thought that was so neat that instead of all the other things to just swim away from this creature, he's just like, I'm going with my deck of many things. It's like, let's have it. Let's go.
Strap in. Yeah.
All right. What'd you get? So.
You're a brave DM for using a deck of many things. There's not many.
Oh, he
Most people
can't
shy
use it
away.
ever. He can't ever use it again. But
Yeah, the one time. Yeah, I think that's a good question.
that's a really good
It's
question.
it's just hard to think it when you're put on the spot, isn't it? But
It
yeah,
is. I think if I had more time to think and answer about it, I could probably come up with at least a dozen different great things. But yeah, I
yeah,
like that.
that's one of the good parts of D&D is
Mhm.
the creative solutions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question is, what puzzle are you most proud of? Do you have one that comes to mind? I am gonna be honest. I don't think I have ever made my own puzzle.
Really?
Yeah, I always use other people's, including yours,
Oh,
including
that's
your
good.
puzzles. Yeah. So I will usually either find on YouTube or Google puzzles and then
Mhm.
input them into, or I'll reflavor them and like might change minor details about them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've never tried making one myself. Maybe I need to. Maybe it's a good experience to make one.
Yeah.
But so I feel like I can't answer this one because all of mine are stolen.
No problem. I guess I could try to answer that. But yeah, I mean I mean, it's just puzzle creation. I mean, if it's something that you want to do, I mean, just I mean, give it a try. I mean, that's there's a lot of communities out there that will help you and guide you through it. Not just with puzzles, but with anything. I mean, like the members of my Discord community, you go and you post it in there. If it intrigues people, I mean, you just get these reactions. I mean, you can catch that kind of a community anywhere, Reddit or Facebook groups or whatnot. But definitely, if
Yeah,
it's something you're interested in, give it a try.
yeah, and so Wally's Discord is in the description. If any of
Mm.
you are
Yeah.
interested, there is a channel called Puzzle Ideas and Trap Ideas, where there's quite a lot of people talking about different ideas and bouncing off of each other and putting them through. So if you are if you do enjoy making puzzles or traps, go
Yeah,
over to
huge.
Wally's
Yeah, huge shout out
Discord.
to my Discord community. They're very very active and they're very helpful. I mean, they know a lot more about stuff than I do. I feel like the rookie there half of the time, but always great communication and everybody helps each other, especially when it comes because I'm more based around creating things, creating traps, creating puzzles, creating encounters and stuff, and they're very very good at it. And it's always awesome to just read through them. But to answer the question, puzzle that I'm most proud of, and that's so hard because they're all like my pride and joys. I like every single one of them. Um, Man, I would probably have to put that in there. It would probably have to be the prismatic owl as far as that I'm most proud of. It's one of my earlier ones, and that's simply I call it a hub puzzle, which is you put different items in it to get it to open up different areas of the dungeon, and uh the way that it works is you put two yellows and it turns one way. You put two blues and you take these gems and put them in the eye sockets, and that's what turns it around. And that mixing the different colors will open up different areas. But I guess the reason I'm most proud of it is because it's one of my earlier ones, but it's always one that I hear the most about. Even though it's not my most watched puzzle video, it's the one that I always get a lot of compliments on. And I think it's because it's an easy one that you can use or run for any level. Now, my favorite one is going to be my magic mouth puzzle, and that's where where your character has to solve the puzzle by using their sense of taste.
That's definitely different.
Yeah.
That's definitely unique. Cool. Yeah, and is that on your YouTube channel?
Yes.
That one. Yeah.
That one is the magic mouth puzzle, and
Cool.
it is on my channel as well. Yes, and it's
There
in
you
my
go.
book. Mhm.
Go and check it out. Wally's channel is also in the description, so you can just click through and go and search Magic Mouth and find that one. I
Yeah.
definitely will be after this. I don't think
Yeah.
I've seen that video, so I'll go and see how you deal with that.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Fred is asking, do you make custom monsters? And if so, how do you do it? Or do you just run from the book?
I usually choose one from the book. With that being said, I have one in a book, and that is the Diminution Drake was printed in Tome of Beasts 2 by Kobold Press. So that was a really neat honor for me as I submitted that and my monster was selected to be printed in the book. So that is a monster that I've created. I've only created a handful of other ones. And usually, when I go about wanting to create a custom monster, is because I have a specific purpose or something that I want them to be able to do specifically. Um, Other than that, to be honest, I just love going through Kobold Press's books. I mean, there's 3 books of extraordinarily, I mean, just absolutely fun monsters. I mean, I'll pull one out of the monster manual every once in a while, but those Kobold Press monsters, especially for me when I play with a lot of other folks that are DMs as well, I find it just more surprising and it adds so much more when it's a monster they haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think it does get tricky when you play with D&D veterans to
Mhm.
keep them on your toes, because if you throw a troll at them, they know they have to hit him with fire to stop the regen and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
the additional books definitely helps.
Yeah.
I usually would, if I'm custom making a monster, it's just a reflavor. So rather than a fire-based salamander, it would be like a ice-based salamander or something like that. So I did a mini streamed adventure, which was based around gem dragons before the newest book came out.
Mhm.
So I had made gem dragons, or my
Oh,
versions of gem dragons,
nice.
which was quite fun. But then Fizzbands came out, and so I'll probably just use those ones in the future if Gems Dragons come back into it. But that's quite fun. I generally, other than that though, haven't made custom monsters from scratch. I think there's so many out there now that you can easily find something to fit where you need it to be from the official books, and as you said, the Cold World Press books are all very good as well. So I think you can almost certainly find what you're looking for, or just need to reflavor something to what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think creating monsters is a lot of fun, but and I have this problem with puzzles and everything else that I write is I'm that perfectionist that needs to get everything right the first time. So I try to put so much thought into it, and I write a little bit, and I come back and everything else that it would probably, if I were to create a lot of monsters, it would take a lot of time. But it is fun. It's a really fun exercise, and I think the more that you make, just like anything, the better you would get at it. But it's a fun, if you've never done it before, to challenge yourself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing as well that I've done is add spellcasting to monsters or creatures that don't have it, which is, I guess, a bit of custom monster making. But that can also, I remember one time I threw a troll that had spellcasting at players, and they didn't really know what to do. They were like, oh no, okay, and they have to come at it a different way.
I like that. I think you could do that on all levels. Like there's, I mean, you could have a skeleton that throws firebolts. It's just a cantrip. And so instead of attacking with a club or whatever else, it just, skeleton mage.
Yeah. I think I think it was the 4th edition monster manual. There were like fire skeletons and acid skeletons and poison skeletons, which I've used before as well. Because I've had a phase, or well, I still do it every now and again, where I went back through the 3.5 and the 4E monster manuals, and took some of them and used them in my games because there's quite a lot missing. So that's a good way to get some more if you don't want to use the basic ones as well.
And a great resource for that is Dungeon Dad's channel. He goes through a lot of those old monsters and he does stat blocks for them.
There you go. Okay, so I think this is going to be our last question then, Wally, and here's another one from Great Mustache. She's asked some good questions tonight. So what are some of your most used sources of inspiration for items, people, plot in your games? You pull a lot from games, movies, etc. Do you have anything that comes to mind, or should I?
I do. And again, since this is the last question, Great Mustache, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Great person. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Fred, How to D&D, and Sam. Good to see everybody here. As far as answering this question, so there's a YouTuber that I'm subscribed to called CJU Games. He's coming up on 100,000 subscribers, and he plays a lot of indie horror games. And I'll take about half an hour to 45 minutes as I'm going to sleep every night, and I will put that on my iPad, and I will watch that. And it gives me all kinds of different ideas for encounters, for stories, for puzzles, things like that. I mean, he's very mellow as far as a YouTuber is concerned, and just he's a lot of fun to watch. And I don't have the time to play all these games, and I'm not that good at it. So being able just to watch them every night has been probably the biggest source of inspiration that I have currently.
That's really cool, actually. That's something I don't hear many people talk about, is watching other people play games and get the inspiration through that way. That's a good idea, actually, if you don't have the time yourself to commit to games. Another one, so everything you said there, like the games, movies, books as well, I get inspiration from. I'm reading the Mistborn series at the moment from Brandon Sanderson, and really enjoying them. And just watch the Arcane series on Netflix as well, and there's some really cool inspiration from that. But I think another one that is, I guess, a little bit more unusual is watching other people play D&D.
Yeah.
So I watch quite a few different, over the years, I have watched a few different streams. So Dice Cam Action, like you said earlier, before that came to an abrupt end. And then Critical Role, I've watched High Rollers, Arcane Arcade. There's been quite a few that I've not watched them all from start to end.
Mhm.
But I think from watching other D&D tables, you can get quite a lot of inspiration and some ideas of how to play the game, as well as inspiration for items, people's plots, etc., etc. I it's weird when you start streaming a game, because I streamed it was just an 8-episode game,
Mhm.
and I had to be really careful that the inspiration I was pulling from wasn't other D&D streamed games,
Oh
because
yeah.
in my
Mhm.
table games I will outright steal basically stuff from like Critical Role or High Rollers and stuff. But you can't do that in a streamed game, because then everyone will know that you're just copying Critical Role or the other ones.
Right.
So that was an interesting. I had to be very conscious of where I was getting inspiration from.
Mhm.
And I think that also gets me in the mood quite a lot. If I'm struggling with inspiration, I'll go and watch a D&D stream,
Mhm.
and then it sort of gets my juices flowing as such to get in the mood of build
I'm
stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I guess that would be my 1B. So 1A would be the video games, 1B would be that. I do listen to a lot of that because they're so long, and I when I'm at work, I can just put them in and let them play.
Mm.
And I have, like for all the reasons you mentioned, I have gained a lot of how to run things, combat or scenarios or encounters or stuff like that. So Mark from High Rollers, what's Mark's last name?
Holmes or Humes. I don't
Humes.
know how you
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it.
Mark
Yeah.
Sherlock Humes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I that's one of the more recent ones that I've been watching is I forget the name of it. It's not High Rollers, but the one that he has Nate Sharp
It,
and Adam
oh,
Prosser.
Night of
Knights
Heaven.
of Evening Star.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I've been enjoying that one, and Mark is quickly becoming one of my favorite celebrity DMs for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've watched the High Rollers. I haven't actually watched that one. I don't know why, because I liked those players in Dice Camera Action.
Mhm.
So I probably should have watched that one as well. But yeah, I've watched him. He's another English guy as well, so represent. But yeah, he's definitely one of my favourite. I really like Chris Perkins as well.
Yeah,
That Dice Camera Action sort
yeah.
of. I think that was the first time. He's so good at tying stuff together,
Mhm.
and it sort of blew my mind when he did some of the stuff, because I was just used to my own game and Critical Role, really, which is
Mhm.
very story and theatrical in its own way.
Right.
Whereas his, yeah, I don't even know how to explain
He
what he does.
he reaches into a bag and pulls something out from like 3 months ago, and as soon as he does, you immediately recognize it. You're right, he has that knack for just he can call back all this stuff. I mean, somebody might have bought something at a business, and he'll pull that into a story like a month or 2 down the line. Yeah, he's an absolute wizard at this stuff for sure.
Yeah. I think this. So, just in case you are ever going to watch Dice Camera Action, this is going to be a spoiler. Have you watched the whole thing?
Yes.
Yes. So the one part that really blew my mind was when I forgot all of their names now, but they were in the Curse of Strahd, I think, part,
Mhm,
and they went to a shop where someone made like clockwork people or
mhm,
clockwork toys and
mhm,
stuff like that. And the shop owner was like obsessed with Evelyn.
mhm,
Um, and then I don't know how many sessions, like 10 sessions down the line, she was in a instant where her character died. And then her soul ended up going into a clockwork doll that he had been making out back, because he was obsessed with her. And I was just like, what? How do you tie all of
yeah,
that in?
yes,
That is a big old callback. And he was obviously never going to know that she was going to die in that instant and be taken into that. So it
yeah.
showed me a whole different way of tying backstories in and playing D&D, really.
Yeah, he's my
Um,
absolute favorite. Just some of the stuff he does is just absolutely mind blowing.
yeah, and unfortunately, he's not streaming anything at the moment,
No,
so
he's
we'll have to deal with the others, I suppose.
not.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming and chatting.
Yeah,
I'll put
thanks for having
the
me.
one back. If you want to check out Wally DM, there's a load of links in the description. Where are you most active for people to go and follow you?
Most active on YouTube, Discord, and Twitter.
Yeah, and all of them are down in the description, so make sure to go and check out Wally. And as Wally said, thank you everyone for coming, especially Fred. I know you're here pretty much every week, so thank you for popping by and saying hello. And some really good questions this week, actually. So thank you. And we'll be back next week. So if you have any questions and you're watching this after the fact, put them down in the comments, and I will take them next week. Any last words, Wally, before we go?
Not at all. Thanks for having me. I definitely enjoyed it. Good discussion for sure.
Perfect. Okay, well, I will see you next week then. See you later.